All right, welcome to today's class, everyone. We'll be talking about how journey maps can help you build better products. So last week, we spent a lot of time talking about some requirements. We talked about MVPs, PRDs, and roadmaps. But today we are going to focus on something that helps us bring all of that together by looking at our products through the eyes of the user, and that is where the journey map comes in. So by the end of this class, you'll be seeing journey map not as some fancy artifacts. That's for some of us that already have an idea of what the journey map is, right? But you'll be seeing it as a practical tool that every product manager should be able to master, because journey maps help us build better products by helping us understand, like really understand our customers and what they go through when they interact with our products, our company, our processes, and and so on. First, we'll look at the definition of journey map. This is where we demystify a journey map, right? What it really is. I want you to, see it not just as a tool, like I said, or some diagram, right? But as something that, helps you shift your perspective and step into your user's shoes and experience your own products or services the way the user also, experience them. Next, we'll break down the key components of journey maps, because it's one thing to know what a journey map is, and another thing to, entirely know how to build one, right? One that actually delivers insight. We'll walk through the core pieces of, every good journey map, right? From personas to touch points, pain points, and some opportunities. And we'll talk about a lot of other things, right? So let's just quickly get into it. So starting from, the basics, what exactly is journey map? A journey map tells the story of your customer's experience from the first point of contact they have with your company or product, all the way through to whatever outcome or next step they take. Now, for the textbook definition, you could say a journey map is a visual representation of the steps a person takes, including their thoughts, emotions, and actions when trying to achieve a specific goal. Now, most of the time, we show journey maps visually. You might see boxes, arrows, timelines, on your board. And that's great. But let me tell you, the meaning of a journey map is not in how pretty it looks. The real power is in the story it actually tells. The journey map lays out how your customer moves through the different stages, the different touch points as they interact with your product or your company. And what makes it special is that, it forces us to see things from their own point of view, not just from ours, but from theirs. Now we stop thinking like the company for a second when we are preparing a journey map, and we start to think like the customer, right? Let me paint a picture here. Imagine you're working on an app. Let's say it's an app for freelancers to track time and maybe send invoices. Now think about a user's journey with that app. It might start with them seeing an ad about the app, maybe on Facebook or Instagram or any search engine, right? That's their first encounter. Then they click on the ad that sends them to your website. Now they're on your site, looking around, trying to get, that first impression. Maybe they like what they see, maybe they are already confused, right? Or maybe they are unsure. But if they get intrigued enough, to get interested, right? They click on sign up. Maybe your product offers a free trial. Let's just assume it's a paid platform, and then you offer a free trial. So they have to fill out a form. They get to the process of filling out the form. Now here's where it gets somewhat interesting. Do they fill it out very smoothly, or do they hesitate? Are the fields that they have to fill unnecessary? Are some of the fields unnecessary, or are some of the fields somewhat invasive, like privacy invasive? Maybe you're asking for phone number or asking for details they are not quite ready to give because, well, they do not trust you just yet, right? You see, that moment of hesitation, that's a friction point on the journey, right? And that matters. Let's say they, regardless, right, they sign up, they push through and they sign up. Now what's next? They get a welcome email from your company. Well, is that email, the content of that email, is it warm, is it helpful, or is it cold and just simply generic, right? That's another step in the journey. Then they log in for the first time, they get into your products, they see your dashboard. Now let's take a pause here and think, how do they feel at this moment, right? They are on your product, they are on the dashboard. Are they excited, or are they somewhat overwhelmed, right? Do they know where to start, or are they lost? Maybe they tried to create their first invoice. Remember, it was an invoice that brought them to your product. They tried to create their first invoice. Do they succeed easily, or do they get stuck somewhere? And maybe they reach out to support because they can't figure something out. That's another touch point. And the journey continues on and on, just like that, right? The picture I'm trying to paint here to you is that every one of these moments, right from the moment they see your ad, to clicking the button, to asking for help, every one of these are a part of the customer or user journey. And when we map it out, we can see the full story. We can see where we are helping the customer or the user, and we can see where we might, actually be making things harder for them without even realizing it, right? So now I'm going to be using customer or user journey. They both mean the same thing, because sometimes you can build a product that, the end goal is for people to buy and pay, right? When they actually do that, they become your customers. But if it's just a product that people get to use and there's no buying and selling, they are your users. So they mean the same thing, in case I have to use those two words interchangeably. So do not get confused. All right. So let's put in some persona into this. Let's imagine Sarah. Sarah owns a small business. She's looking for an easy way to manage invoice. She's busy. Now, if I were you, I'll be comparing this persona to what I did, right? For those of us that are yet to do our task, right? She owns a small business. She's looking for an easy way to manage invoices. She's very busy. She's busy juggling a lot. She sees an ad for your product that promises, simple invoicing. That ad grabs her attention, right? She clicks, she lands on your website, and she looks around. She likes what she's seeing on the site. She likes what it looks like. It's clean, it's professional. That alone begins to build her trust. She reads a couple of reviews and she decides to give it a try. She clicks to sign up. The form asks for name, email. That's very easy. But then it asks for her phone number. This makes her, hesitate a bit. She doesn't like giving out her phone number because, unless she has to, right, for privacy reasons. That hesitation right there, that's a moment of friction. Maybe she decides to go ahead, maybe she doesn't. But let's just say she does. She signs up, she gets a welcome email. It's, friendly, it's warm, it's welcoming. It tells her how to get started. Now that helps, right? She logs in for the first time. She sees the dashboard. It looks a bit busy. She's not sure where to start. There's no clear first step. She clicks around for a bit, feeling a little lost. She finds a creative invoice, right, that says, create your invoice, a button rather, that says create your invoice. And she tries. She gets through to that, but it takes longer than she expected. She's not sure she did the right thing, but there are no clear onboarding processes. There's no clear guide. That's Sarah's journey with your product. And if you were mapping it, you see those key moments, those hesitations, at the phone number field, the initial confusion on the dashboard, the small victory of, creating her first invoice, even if it was a bit, clunky or clumsy. And from that map, you would have, been able to have a clear signal about where you need to improve. Maybe making the sign up form a bit leaner, maybe simplifying the dashboard, or maybe adding a guided first invoice walkthrough. Things like how-to videos or write-ups on onboarding processes, things like that. Click here first, click here second, click here third, processes like that. This is what journey maps give us. They give us the full story with all the highs and the lows, all the emotional bits. They help us build a better experience for our users. And it's not just about, individual steps. Journey maps can help you spot bigger patterns too. They can reveal some gaps, places where you're leaving customers stranded without support or guidance, right? Or some overlaps, even places where your teams are, stepping on each other's toes. Imagine, let's say, the sales department and the marketing department, both reach out to the same customer at the same time. Now, reaching out to the same customer at the same time from the same company is not just a problem, but they are reaching out with conflicting messages. That happens when we don't have a clear map of the journey. Now, one more thing I want you to take away from this is that journey maps bring teams together. When you create a journey map, you're not doing it alone, just like when you're creating your roadmap and every other thing we talked about. You're not doing it alone. You're pulling insights from different directions. You're pulling insights from your marketing team, from your sales team, from your support team, even from your engineering and design teams. You're pulling insights from all of those directions. At this point, you're building, a shared understanding of what the customer experience really looks like. And that shared understanding helps you align everybody, right? It helps all of you see what you're working towards. If you're working towards the same goal, which would, make life a bit better for the users. I mean, that should be everybody's goal, of course, right? So when you think about journey maps, don't think of them as, just tools. Think of them as a lens that helps us see a user, right? A lens that helps us see our products and our companies the same way our users see them. A lens that helps us find and fix the things that aren't really working, right? And also a lens that helps us build better products. And remember, once you have that map, it's not just something you stick. It's not just something you it's not just something you stick in a folder and forget about, right? It feeds directly into your product roadmap, right? It helps you make decisions about what to build next, what to improve, what to cut. It even gives you some evidence and the reasoning to back up those decisions. when you're talking to stakeholders or your team. It connects what you're building to the real experience of your customer. That's why the journey map matters. That's why I want you to start, thinking about how you can use them, not just as an exercise, but as an integral part of how you design, how you build and improve your product. Because when you put yourself in your customer's shoes, when you see the world through their eyes, that's when you're actually building something truly valuable. That's when you move from just creating features or creating experiences to creating something that people actually love and can relate with. Please confirm you can still hear me. Hello, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank
Yes.
you very much. Thank you, thank you. Okay, go ahead. Now, why does this matter so much? Why do you need a journey map? Well, it matters because most of the times when we are building products, we are focused on what we are doing, right? We are looking at our to-do list, our backlogs, our roadmaps, and so on. We think, okay, marketing department has launched the ad, that has been checked. The user signed up, that's check. We've sent, onboarding emails, check. All of that, check it out. But that's not how the user sees it, right? The user doesn't care about our internal processes. They care about their own experience, about how it feels to use our product. And journey mapping helps us flip that perspective. It helps us stop looking at the world from just inside of the company and start looking at it through our users' eyes. And let's be clear, a good journey map just doesn't just list the steps. It tells you how the customer feels at each of those steps. When they see your ad, are they curious? Are they excited? Or are they skeptical? When they, hit a confusing field in your sign-up form, do they feel frustrated? Are they annoyed? Are they, starting to wonder if this product is really for them? And when they successfully send their first invoice, do they feel proud, relieved, or more confident in your product? Because those feelings, right, they determine what they do next. If the journey feels smooth and positive, they are more likely to stick around with you. If it feels a bit clunky or frustrating, they'll drop off and start, looking for another alternative or another solution. Now, here's another reason journey map matters. They show us reality, not just what we hope is happening. Sometimes we fall into the trap of mapping out the ideal journey, the one we wish our customers or our users were having, right? But what we need rather is the journey, because you want to know what they are actually experiencing with your product. What you need is the journey they are actually having, not the one you have in your head, not the one you're wishing that they have, right? That's where we see the friction point. And that's where we find the opportunities to make things a bit better for them. So journey map helps you, one, understand your customer's experience step by step, so you can see what it actually feels like from their point of view, not just from your company's internal process. And two, it uncovers hidden problems or friction points in the customer journey that might be turning customers away without you even realizing, right? And number three, it allows you to spot gaps or overlaps. I mentioned this earlier in your processes where teams or efforts are working against each other instead of supporting the customer's experiences. Now, these efforts and processes working against each other may not be something deliberate, right? It may be something that feels right for a particular team in your organization, right? But it doesn't really align well with the user experience. And number four, it forces your product, marketing, sales, and even your support team to think beyond their personal silos and work together with a shared understanding of the customer journey. You know, sometimes you have people who just prefer to work alone. They just want to work alone. They know what they want to do, and they're in their corner doing their thing. But no, a journey map brings everybody together and makes sure that everybody is working with a shared understanding of the customer journey. Now, five, it helps align all departments around a common goal. The common goal is to improve the customer's experience. So it aligns everybody to follow that common goal, right? Which is what, we are focused on, what truly matters. That is what differentiates, product managers from other managers, right? It gives you clearer and more logical reasoning for your product decision, helping you tie customer needs directly to your roadmap. It also allows you to act early, fixing issues or improving touch points before customers drop off or get frustrated, because you're going to see those things and you're going to fill those gaps early. It provides a visual tool that can guide discussion, decision, and priorities across teams, making complex journeys easier to understand at a glance. It helps amplify the value of insights and domain knowledge scattered across different teams, by bringing them together to map the customer experience. They all gain this knowledge, right? It keeps the focus where it belongs. This is so important. It keeps the focus where it belongs. I cannot stress this enough. The focus is always on the customer, on the user. So your products and services genuinely serves their need if the focus does not shift rather from them, right? You can always screen grab this for later reference though, what you have on your screen. Now, moving on, let's look into the key components of a journey map. Now, no matter what the map looks like, whether it's a simple diagram or if it's a detailed chart or even a digital tool, what truly matters are those core elements you must always include, because without these pieces, right, what you have is just a flow chart. What you're going to have is just you putting things together on your board, right? It's not really a customer journey. And as product managers, we want to create something that gives us clear, actionable insights. So let's break this down carefully. The first thing we start with is the persona identification. Who is this map about? That is the question you'll be answering here. And this is where we'll bring in our persona, a well-dressed, a well-researched, realistic presentation of a specific type of user. And if you remember, we had talked about a persona earlier. We know that the persona gives us focus. We're not trying to map everybody's experiences all at once. That would become very confusing and very messy. Instead, we want to pick one persona so we can tell one very clear, detailed story. That is the benefit of using a persona. Now, still using our invoicing app, say we are working on an invoicing app. Our persona, remember, is Sarah. Sarah owns a small business. She's juggling a lot of tasks. She's looking for a tool that simplifies her invoicing. Everything in the map will follow Sarah's point of view. The map you're creating, every single thing should follow her POV, right? Next, we move to the scenario, or you can say emotional states and goals. This is where we describe the exact situation we are mapping. And this one is, what is Sarah trying to do? Remember, the first one was we were trying to identify who. And now we are trying to identify the what. Nneka cannot hear me. Can anyone else hear me?
I can hear
Just give
you. I
me a
can hear
thumbs
you.
up. Let me. Thank you very much. All right, let's continue. Okay, like I said, the first one we were trying to identify the who, and now we are trying to identify the what. What's her state of mind while doing this? In our case, the scenario is Sarah, right? Coming across an ad for our invoicing app and deciding to give it a try. Now, what's her goal here? Maybe she wants to manage her invoice in a simpler, faster way so she can focus on, running her business. Emotionally, she may be hopeful, but also skeptical. She has probably tried other tools before that didn't quite meet her needs. This part of the map gives us context and reminds us why this journey matters in the first place. Now, we look at the stages or steps, that is timelines and phases. Now, these are the broad phases that Sarah goes through from start to finish. For her, that could look like seeing the ad, visiting the website, reading reviews, signing up for a free trial, if you remember this list clearly, signing up for a free trial, using the app for the first time, sending out her first invoice, and possibly reaching out for support. Now, each of these is a stage. We don't want to get too detailed, with the other micro steps that involves these steps. But we are going to get into that along the line as we progress. Now, after that, we identify touch points and channels. Right, this is where we capture where Sarah is interacting with our company or product. The touch points might include Facebook ad that she saw or Instagram, the landing page she arrived at, the onboarding emails she received, the dashboard of the app itself, and even the customer support chat. The channels here could be mobile, desktop, email, or social media. Now, mapping these out helps us see how seamless or not the experience is across all of these platforms. Now, at each stage, what is Sarah thinking and feeling? When she sees your ads, she might be thinking, this could help me. When she visits the site, maybe she feels reassured by the look, right, of your site. During onboarding, maybe she's a bit confused or maybe somewhat pleasantly surprised by how easy it is. Now, these emotional layers help us find moments of delight and friction where we are winning and where we are possibly losing her interest. When we've captured our emotions, then we capture the user or customer action, the pain point, and the friction. This is the behavioral and usability part. What is Sarah doing at each step? Is she clicking on the start free trial button? Is she filling out a form? Is she giving up halfway because the sign up process is too long? At this point, we are trying to spot what's working for her so far and what she's, where she's running into trouble. Maybe she struggles to understand how to connect her bank account. Maybe she can't find the send invoice button easily, and so on. These are the pain points that can often slip through the cracks if we are not looking at these things from the user's perspective. Now, next is opportunities and improvement. This is where the goal is. Now that we've seen how Sarah interacts with our product, where she gets stuck, and what she's feeling, we can start identifying what to fix or improve. Maybe we realize the form is too long and needs fewer required fields, or maybe I'll get started email could include a short video. You know, when you're sending the get started email, it could include a short video to show her how the app works. Or maybe, you know, other options that could just help make life easier while she's using our product. And then we move on to time frame and duration. This part is often visualized on the map, right? It shows how much time is spent at each stage, right? Does it take Sarah 2 minutes or 2 days to send her first invoice? Is she stuck in the onboarding phase for too long? You know, and so on. Time adds another layer of insight, right? Fast doesn't always mean better. The fact that she did it fast does not mean she had a better experience. But, you know, unexpected delays can also be a huge red flag. We just have to find a way to balance these things. And finally, we track metrics or data points. These are the things we can use to validate and inform the journey. Data tells us how often the pain points happen and how big the problem is and how immediate we need to fix it. That is the job of data. When you put all of those pieces together, you get a full living story of how one person, which is Sarah in this case, interacts with your product. You know, what she needs, how she feels, where she gets stuck, and what we can do to make it better, right? That's what a journey map is made for. Not just some, you know, pretty charts on the wall, but a real insight engine that can help us build a better and more user-centric product, which is our main focus, a user-centric product. All right, now that we've explored the key components of journey maps and how they help us see through the eyes of our users, let's take this a little further. I want us to look at what we call journey map variations, right? Please, before I continue, let's kindly drop an emoji on the chat so that I know that we are following and I am not talking to myself, right? Let me see your favorite emoji on the chat before I continue. Thank you, Chukwemeka. Thank you, Favor. All right, thank you, guys. Okay, we are going to continue. So you see in product management and, you know, UX work, there are several concepts that sounds very similar to journey maps, or sometimes can also be visually, you know, looking the same visually, basically. They might even at first glance when you see them, they might look the same, right? But they serve different purposes. And understanding these differences is really important for us as product managers. Now, please, I'm not sharing this so that you can go around debating definitions with people in your, maybe your place of work or your groups. For those of us that belong to a group of PMs, that's not, you know, what this is about, because every organization will have its own language and culture. The point here is for you to build clarity in your mind so that you can spot when something is missing from your process, right? Or when another method would give you a new kind of insight, right? So this is the aim of this, not so that we can strike arguments somewhere. So let's walk through some of these variations, starting from the experience map. An experience map is like the parent of a journey map, right? When we create a journey map, we are usually focused on a specific actor, that is a specific user or customer, and a specific scenario related to our product or service. That's what we call a persona. Now, in this case, our persona is Sarah. You know, a persona trying to sign up for invoicing software That's a journey map. It is focused, it's tied to a particular experience with a product, right? But an experience map is a bit broader. It's not tied to a specific product or even a specific company. It's about a general human experience. Let's say we are looking at how people in general, you know, get from one place to another, right? We are not yet talking about different types of hailing products like Uber or Lyft, right? We are just mapping the overall experience. And that would include people walk, they drive, they bike, they take a bus, or they call it taxi. Some of them they catch a train or basically means of transportation, right? The experience map helps us understand this broader behavior, what people, generally go through in this part of their lives, what options they have, and what pain points they might face. Once we have that big picture, we can then spot opportunities because we realize people really struggle with unpredictabilities of flair, or they hate dealing with, cash payments, or the timing of public transport is too unreliable. From there, we can now decide to zoom in and create a journey map focused on one solution. I hope we can hear me and we understand the difference, right? Say how a user books a ride through the Lyft app, or how someone rents a bike through Lime or any other platform. So think of it as let's say experience map is your 10,000-foot view, right? It helps you understand human behavior at large. And then your journey map zooms in on one actor and one experience, right? That's a way to simply put it. Next, let's talk about service blueprint, right? If the experience map is the parent and the journey map is the child, then think of service blueprint as the grandchildren. I don't know why I'm laughing, but okay. Think of that as the grandchildren, right? Here's what I mean. We start with the journey map where we see what the user goes through, their steps, touch points, emotions, pain points. But then we ask, what is a company doing behind the scenes, to make this journey happen? That's where the service blueprint comes in. A service blueprint takes your journey map and adds layer that shows your internal processes, your internal systems and teams, that support each customer touch point rather. Now, going back to that Lyft app we're using as an example, in the journey map, we show how the customer opens the app, selects a destination, books a ride, books a car, selects a car, and then, basically just books a ride, right? But in the service blueprint, we dig into things like what Lyft is doing at every step. Now, Lyft is the name of the hailing company here, please. Now, what Lyft is doing in every step, how the system matches the customer to a driver, how it calculates T-fares, how it sends out notification, how customer support is ready if there's an issue, more like pulling out the curtain on your company's role in, delivering that journey. And this is critical because as product managers, we don't just care about what the customer sees. We need to understand and improve the machinery that makes experience, possible for them, a good experience possible for them. Now let's move on to user story maps. I want you to listen closely here because people often get confused at this point. A user story map, especially when you look at it at first glance on the whiteboard or a mirror board, it can look a lot like a journey map. You know, there are sticky notes or digital cards. They are organized in rows and columns. You know, you see the steps, you see the features, but the purpose of a user story map is very different, right? User story maps come from agile practices, right? If you remember our agile and waterfall methodologies. So user story comes from the agile practices. They're not about discovering or understanding your user's experience, right? They're about planning and building your products. In a user story map, you take the user's goal and break it down into features or stories that your team can work on and deliver. The classic user story format would be don't worry, when we get there, you're going to understand this better. So a classic user story format would be, as a user or as a type of user, I want to do so, right, to get so. So as an account holder, I want to deposit checks on my phone so that I don't have to visit the bank, right? It's simple, it's focused, it's direct, straight to the point. As we proceed, all of this will make sense to us, so please just follow me. Now, the map version of this layout, you know, it lays out those stories visually, right? Often aligning them with releases or sprints. Let's say we are building that mobile check deposit. We break it down into steps, right? Logging in, starting a deposit, taking a picture of the check, entering the amount, confirming the transaction. No, for each step, we note the features we'll need, right? Enabling camera access, scanning, all of those information. So while a journey map helps you discover where a user struggles or feels delighted, which can be considered a tool for empathy, right? For big picture, understanding a user story, right? But a user story map, in the other hand, helps you plan how to deliver functionality, right? To address what you learned from that journey map. I don't know if you got that, right? Let me give you an example to tie this all together. Imagine our journey map for Lyft shows that users who are in a group of 6 struggle to book rides, 6 or 5, right? As long as they're in a group, they struggle to book rides because the app only handles standard rides. You can call that, the insight and the pain point. We decide to add a multi-car booking features, to solve this. That's where we switch to the user story map. We break that big feature into pieces, a team can deliver. The UI change to let people select multiple cars, logic to assign drivers, ways to split payments, notifications, and so on. So basically, the journey map showed us the problem. The user story map helps us build the solution in steps, right? The journey map shows us the problem, while the user story maps help us build the solutions in steps. Now, you understand this variation. You can pick the right tools at the right time, right? Sometimes you need the bigger picture to spot new opportunities. Sometimes you need to break down a specific journey to spot the gaps and the pain points. While sometimes you need to look inside your company to fix the systems that supports the journey. And every other time you need to get down to the tiny bit, track the deliveries, because that's where the user story map comes from, tiny bits. So the next time someone pulls up a journey map or a user story map, or even starts talking about some basic blueprints, I want you to feel confident that you know what these are meant for, where they fit in your process and how they can help you build a better product and a better experience for your users and your customers. Okay, let's talk about why we are even, why we even bother creating journey maps. Why should we, as product managers, spend time building these things out? Why not leave it to the designers or even the marketers, saying that they are going to use it most? Well, I want you to really understand this, because buy into the why, then how we spend time to talk about won't matter much to you. There are two big reasons why journey maps are valuable. Two key benefits you get, and I want you to keep this in mind as you work on your own maps, or when it's time, right, when you're trying to put it into practice with your future teams. The first reason is all about the process of creating the map. See, when we sit down to build a journey map, we are focused on, important conversation, right? We are forced to slow down, step back, and really think through the customer's experience. And this is the big one. We are forced to do it together as a team. You're not doing it alone. You're forced to do it with your team, right? In most organizations, everybody is busy. The product team is out there focused on, delivery dates. Marketing is out there focused on campaign and messaging. Your support, they're out there focused on other things. And your engineering also here, they're focused on building your products. Everyone is busy. They are busy measuring their own success in their own way. Everybody has their own KPIs, their own dashboard, and no one is really looking at the big picture of, the customer's experience across all of these touch points. That fragmentation, that scattered way of thinking, that's where mapping points come from. But it's not usually because no one cares. It's because no one person or team is tasked with connecting all the dots of what the customer actually, goes through end to end. Nobody is tasked with that. Everybody's just busy and being focused on their own thing. So when you build a journey map, it forces the team to create a shared mental model. What do I mean by that? It means we stop thinking just from our own department's point of view. We all come to the table, the product team, marketing, sales, support, engineering, design, everybody comes to the table and we work together to see and map out the journey from the customer's perspective. And in doing that, we start to align, right? We start to see where things break down. We start to agree on what's working well and what's causing frustration. That shared vision and common understanding is one of the most powerful outcomes of journey mapping, because without it, how can we even begin to agree on what to fix or how to improve the experience? Would all be pulling in, from different directions and different distractions. Now, the second big reason journey maps are valuable is about the output. The map itself becomes a powerful tool, right? It's a shared artifact that you can use to communicate your understanding of the user or the service to everyone involved, not just, the people who were part of creating the map, but other stakeholders too. Let's say you've built a journey map for your onboarding process. Now you've got this clear visual representation of what your users, go through when they first sign up for your product. You can share that map with leadership to buy in for, improvement. You can share it with the development team to help them see where technical changes have the biggest impact. And you can also share it with support so they understand where the users tend to get stuck and might need help, right? The map helps make the customer experience real for everyone. It tells the story in a way that, that it's easy to grasp, it's simple, it's memorable, and much more than just a pager that you give to somebody, right? Maybe it's a 20-pager report or a long presentation, right? The journey map just simplifies everything. It's concise, it captures the key steps, the touch points, the highs and lows, and because it's shared, it helps create that alignment we talked about earlier. Everyone can see the same picture. Everyone can rally around improving that experience together. Now, here's one thing to think about. The map doesn't just sit there looking pretty. It becomes a living document, just like your roadmap, right? It becomes a living document. As you learn more, as you make changes to the products or services, as you gather new feedbacks from your user, you can update the map, right? Just like you can update your roadmap, okay? Can anyone else hear me clearly? Or it's just
Yes, I can
NEPA?
hear you clearly. I can.
Thank you. All right. You can use it as a basics for decision making as you move forward, right? When you're, let's say, trying to prioritize features in the future, right? You can use that when you're planning. It can even help you modify your roadmap, right? When you're trying to design a new process, you can refer back to the journey map and ask, how does this fit into the experience? Where does this address a pain point? Or where does this create delight? So to sum it up, journey maps help you align your team around a shared understanding of your customer's experience. And they give you a powerful visual tool for communication that, that drives understanding, right? And also helps for better decision making amongst you and your team. That's why journey map matters, not just because they look nice on the wall or in a slide deck, depending on whatever you're using to design your journey map, but because it drives clarity, it drives alignment and better outcomes for your customers. Now that we have talked about that, we've spent a good time understanding journey maps, the power of seeing things from users' perspective, because all this while we've been trying to look at it from our own point of view, right? And that to our product vision, our product planning. I want us to take this a bit further, because at the end of the day, these tools are only as useful as the person using them, right? All those tools are only as good as you, the product manager, and the skills you bring to the table. You can have the best journey map in the world, you can have a beautiful PRD, but if you don't have the right skills, the product will miss its mark, right? So let's talk about the skills that actually make you effective, the skills that help you not to just manage a product, but to lead the product and the product team, to shape it and make it something your users will thank you for. Now, interestingly, some of these skills are something we already possess individually and are most likely already using. You see, the role of a product manager is one that blends so many disciplines. You're not just there thinking about the technical side or about the user side, or just about the business goals. You're right at the intersection, right? You're at the center. All of these things, they encompass you, right? And that's why the most successful product managers are those who develop a well-rounded skill set. Now, these are the people who know how to balance empathy, data, business needs, technology, and human relationship, and do it all while also driving towards the goal, right? They don't just do it individually, they can do it while also having a target in mind. So let's start with empathy. And by now, you know why I'm starting with this. You should be able to tell why, because everything we've talked about so far, the user journey, the pain points, the moments that matters, none of that works without empathy. Empathy is what helps you really see and feel what your user is going through. It's how you pick up on the things they are not saying. It's how you build something that makes their life better. And it doesn't stop with the user. You need empathy for your team to, as trying to solve your tough technical challenges, designers who are over there pulling together the UI interfaces, right? The sales to, you know, tied to empathy, we have communication. Think about it. As a product manager, you're sitting at the intersection, like I said, of many moving parts. You've got to speak the language of the engineering. You've got to speak the language of the design team. You've got to speak the language of leadership, right, and marketing, and many more, depending on how large the company you're working with is. And sometimes, maybe even directly to customers, again, depending on how large the company is. And in each case, it's your job to make sure the message lands and lands well, right? That people understand not just what needs to be done, but why it needs to be done. You'll be constantly translating, aligning, and clarifying. If you leave things vague, right? If you assume people will just get it, what happens is misalignment, right? Wasted effort, missed opportunities. All of this is going to come in if you give vague information, or you just say, oh, people should know what to do and they should just do it. No, it's your job as a product manager to clearly communicate these things to your teammates. Another critical skill is deep thinking. It's so easy in this job to just react, to just jump on whatever is loudest, or whoever is loudest, or whatever came in latest. Let's say you have a team full of people and there's somebody that maybe the person is not a very social person. This person is part of your team. And so because her voice or his voice is not often heard, you are most likely to ignore that person. No, you don't just listen to what is loudest or the voice that is loudest, right? But a good product manager knows how to pause, just pause everything, pause everybody, pause yourself, right? To look at the bigger picture and ask, what's really going on here? What's the problem we are actually trying to solve, right? You're not just a project manager thinking of delivery, right? You're a product manager, a strategist. You're shaping direction, and that requires for you to think beyond the surface, right? It requires for you to see things that other people cannot see or are not seeing at the moment. And because no 2 days are the same, right? Versatility is key. Product managers wear many hats. To be successful, you must adapt to the ever-changing demands of the market and the diverse needs of your team. A versatile product manager can effectively navigate different phases of the product life cycle, from ideation and development to launch to iteration. And they can also collaborate with various departments, including, all of the department, engineering, marketing, sales, ensuring a cohesive and efficient um, progress. This adaptability helps you foster innovation, improves problem solving, and enhances the ability to respond swiftly to challenges, ultimately, driving the product success in a competitive landscape, which brings me to adaptability. You work in all kinds of contexts, right? Some of you may be in startups where there's no playbook or textbook. You're just building products as you go. Others may be in large organization, right? Where there are already processes that are set, where change can take time because they already have their process, or they are still in the waterfall era. They've not yet adapted to the agile area, right? Where change takes time, know how to read the room, understand the environment, and flex your approach accordingly. Don't be rigid, don't be strict, right? Of course, to keep it all together, you need to be organized. Strong organizational skill, ensure that effective systems are in place from day zero, not from day one, from day zero. This systematic approach, helps product managers set up a cohesive team environment and a clear vision, making everyone feel aligned towards a common goal. By being organized, you can, effectively remove obstacles from team members, enabling them to excel. Moreover, protecting the team's time through structured processes ensures that everyone can focus on their specific tasks, enhancing overall productivity and success, because that is all that matters. And then there's decisiveness. You will never have perfect information all the time. You will rarely have unanimous agreements with your team, and yet you'll need to make a decision. You'll need to make a call. Decisiveness is a key quality for top product managers because it allows you to address customer pain points effectively and swiftly. Taylor and Greg, you should check them out. Taylor and Greg encourages using the hypothesis-based approach, right, to decision making. Don't know if you've heard people use the phrase hypothetically speaking, hypothetically thinking, right? This approach requires an open mind and ability to accept being proven wrong without ego, turning every outcome into a learning opportunity. Whether the hypothesis you're using turns out to be right or wrong, the process of making a decisive choice and iterating based on feedback ensures continuous improvement and ultimately leads to better product development. Now we have problem solving. Similarly to decisiveness, product managers must become very good experts at problem solving. They must become expert problem solvers. The ability to solve multifaceted problem enables you to identify and define the first step towards solving them. You need to have the ability to first identify them, right? And then define them, because when you identify and define it, it helps you, towards the way you solve them. There's a saying that if you've defined the problem correctly, solution becomes obvious. So you need to be able to define it right before you can solve it. Now, product managers are often pointed to the double diamond framework. You should check that out. Do some research, go to Google, type the double diamond framework. they are often pointed to this framework as a particularly effective framework for identifying users' pain points. Double diamond divides the process into two phases: problem space and solution space. Initially, explore and understand all potential problems, then narrow down to a specific one. Because there is always a source. There's always one thing that, brings out other problems. So you explore, understand, right, all of the potential problems, and then narrow it down to a specific one. And then next, you consider various solutions before selecting the best one. This approach ensures you invest time and energy in solving a problem that genuinely matters, right? Not just some random issue that is not really a problem. You're focused in solving a problem that matters, right? Additionally, employing different research methods such as interviews and A and B testing throughout the product lifecycle, prevents premature decision and allows for iterative improvements, ensuring a more refined and effective solution. If you take nothing else from today, remember that if you define the problem well, the solution often reveals itself. Our job isn't to just throw solutions at the wall and see which one that sticks, right? To see which one that sticks. It's to really get to understand the skin of the problem, to listen deeply, to look at the data that you have, and to try and understand the context. And from there, the right path becomes a bit clearer, if not entirely clear, right? And this is where research and survey comes in, because how do we build empathy? How do we define problems well? How do we make sure we are solving the right things? We do this by staying close to our users. We don't just build in a bubble. We research and we use our research outcome very well, right? Surveys are a quick way to get a sense of what is happening, at scale. They are great for spotting patterns, for testing assumptions, for checking in on satisfaction or priorities. But also note that surveys only work and are effective if you ask the right questions. I want you to really think about that. A vague survey, a leading question, a confusing option, these things will mess up your data. And once your data is bad, your decision will automatically be bad. So take the time to design your survey carefully. Know what you want to learn. By leading question, I meant asking questions in a way that already gives them an idea that you are an idea of a certain answer, rather, that you're expecting from them, right? If you ask them a leading question, they're just going to give you the answer you are expecting. So do not ask a leading question. That is wrong. Then there's interviews. This is where you really start to go deeper, where you move past the surface and stop making assumptions about what you think your users want or feel, right? It's where you begin to understand their reality in their own words, not just in what you think, not in the version you imagine in your head, right? A user interview isn't about, just ticking off the questions that you have penned down on your list. It's more about creating a space, right? It's more about creating a space for an honest, open conversation between you and the user. One where the user feels heard, where they feel safe enough to share, not just what's working for them, but they are safe enough to also share, what is frustrating them, what is confusing them, or holding them back. And as a product manager, this is where your role as a listener becomes absolutely crucial. Also note, when you're interviewing a user, you are not just listening for the words the person is saying. You tune into everything else that comes with it. The tone of their voice, the places they take pauses, the hesitation and those moments where their face light up when they are talking about something, or when they sound unsure or even disappointed. That's where you get the most information from, those expression, right? Because sometimes what your users don't say out loud tells you even more than what they are actually saying out loud. Maybe they hesitate before they mention a feature that they don't like because they don't want to sound negative or make you feel some kind of way, right? Maybe their voice gets soft, right? Can you guys still hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we
Please give
can.
me some. Thank you. Okay, so maybe their voice, gets softened when they talk about a particular feature that they love because it makes their life a bit easier, in ways that really matters. These are the moments that gives you insights far beyond anything you can gather from analytics alone, right? Observing their body language, their expression, this gives you good insights as well. And I understand that running a good interview isn't easy, right? It takes preparation. You can't just show up and hope all works out, right? You need to think carefully about the kind of questions that will open people up or won't lead them, to say what what they think you're expecting them to say, right? You need to set the tone of curiosity and do so while also setting a tone of respect, right? Do so while also setting a tone of respect. And then once the conversation starts, you must, your most important job is to listen, not to jump in, not to correct them, not to explain, to just listen. Because if you're really paying attention, like I said, your users will tell you everything you need to know. They'll tell you either by words or by expression, right? Or by their body language. Finally, let's talk about competitive analysis. Competitive analysis is the process of comparing your competitors against your brand to understand core differentiators, strengths, and weaknesses. Now, it's an in-depth breakdown of each competitor's market position and their skill, right? You look at your competitor's market position, you look at their sales and marketing tactics, their growth strategy, and other business critical aspects to see what they are doing right and what they are doing wrong as well, and find opportunities from it for your business or for your product. That is what competitive analysis is. This is not about some people mistake competitive analysis for copy and paste. No, this is not about copying what someone else is doing. That's not where the value of competitive analysis lies. What we are really doing here when you're doing a competitive analysis is trying to understand the world our users are living in, because your product doesn't exist in isolation. It's not just your product people are using, right? Every day, your users are interacting with other tools, other services, other companies, other products, right? Those experiences are shaping what they expect from you, what they think is possible, right? What they find delightful and what frustrates them. And they're always going to compare it to your own products that they are using. So competitive analysis help you understand this. When we look at competitors, right, we're asking questions like, what else is out there? What's already setting the bar for usability or features for customer experience? Where are users already getting what they need, and where are they still struggling? What gaps can we fill that no one else is currently addressing, right? Where are competitors falling short, and how can we do better? Not just doing different, how can we do better? This is about, learning and understanding the broader market. You understand the broader market landscape so that you can make informed and smart intentional choices about what you build, how you position it and how you serve your customers. Now, we don't do competitive analysis to follow. We do it to lead. Please take note. We do it to lead, right? And the only way to do that is by staying focused on the needs and realities of our users, not just on what other people are doing. Don't get so carried away with the competitive analysis that you try to tweak your product to do the same thing your competitor's product is doing. No, don't get carried away, right? All right. So, because like I said before, interviews isn't just about showing up with a checklist and, firing up questions at your users. You want to create a natural open conversation where your user feels comfortable enough to tell you the truth, even the uncomfortable truths, right? When you're interviewing your users, remember you are not interrogating them, right? You're not interrogating them, you're inviting them to share their story. Your job is to ask questions that open the door and then step back and listen. You have opened the door to them. Now step back and listen to what they have to say. Now, here are some examples. We're wrapping up now. Here are some example of questions you could ask during an interview. And I want you to notice something here. These are not a yes or a no question, right? These are designed to open things up, to invite a story, right? To get the person talking in a way that helps you see their world through their own eyes, not just from your own angle. Okay? You ask questions like, hey, can you walk me through the last time you tried to, then you attach your question. Question could either be, the last time you tried to achieve a goal, and then you mention the name of your product, right? Mention the name of your product and so on. And then questions like, what happened? This helps the user tell a story in their own words, right? So it helps you, it doesn't just give you one word. Maybe you say, what happened? They said, it wasn't opening. It wasn't opening does not give you a good insight as to what's wrong with your product. So you allow them to use their own word. Just ask what happened and leave them to talk, right? You get to hear what they think. And then you could ask, what was the hardest part of, that experience, right? What was frustrating you? Now, this gets them to surface their pain points, right? Pain points that they might not bring up on their own. On their own, they might not even come and tell you, okay, this is what is frustrating me. But when you ask them, what was the hardest part of that experience, you're creating room for them to open up and, tell you their pain point. And then you go off to what tools or workaround did you try? Let's say they tried your product and it wasn't okay and they gave up, right? This helps you to understand your competitor analysis. It helps you to go check out that tools, right? You start to see where the users are, compensating for gaps in your product or where your competitors might already be helping them, right? So it helps you go check that out and know what to do. Now, another question could be, how did that make you feel? Please don't skip this one. This is so important. The emotional layer is where you really learn what matters to them. We have a lot of people who are very, very emotional and they take emotional things very seriously. So please do not skip that. right? And as you listen to these answers, don't rush to the next question. This is the mistake that some of us make. Don't try to rush them. Don't try to shut them up, right? Let them, say everything they have to say about the other question before you move to the next one. Just sit there in silence for a moment. Sometimes people will keep talking, and that's where the best insight comes out of, right? Make notes, right? Make notes of their tone, make notes of the way they describe things, on what seems important to them, not just what seems important to you. Help them to help you, right? You help them to help you by listening to them, giving them the atmosphere and the room to be able to express themselves in a very, very detailed way for you to understand. So I have said a lot. We'll take a pause here today. And then we'll continue in our next class. Do we have any questions, please? I'm going to stop the recording now. Please, if you have a question, do well to raise your hand, and I'll call on you.